In the top 10, I mean, there might be one or two people that'll give him a hard time. I think we run through most of the top 10.
Whoa, whoa. Ooh, yeah, yeah. Ooh, oh, oh. Yeah, 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 yeah. Tell me what you really, really want, baby.
Welcome back to Drew Pris UNCENSORED. I'm Andrew Bocanegra, your host. I'm here with Priscilla Arguello. We got Rich Barrientes today.
Yep.
How you doing, Rich?
Doing great, man.
All right.
Rich, I have not had the pleasure of sitting down to talk to you, so thank you for coming in today. I've heard your name a lot. There's a lot of big names mentioning your name. Just today, Rolando mentioned your name. I want to know, how did you get into boxing? What is it that you do in the boxing world?
You know what? My family, my dad, my uncles and stuff, they boxing fans and been involved in boxing when I was a kid. I never competed in boxing, but I was around it. I did sparring. I sparred my cousins in the gym, so always around the training aspect of the sport, and not only that, my dad was like a huge like Roberto Duran and Arguello fan, so it was like those are
Me.
like, yes. So I thought I'd bring that up because that was like Alexis was like one of his favorite fighters. You know what I mean?
I'm so sad I couldn't see him fight.
So just being around that, growing up and stuff, I knew when I had sons that they were gonna box. In the womb, I named one of my sons Chavez after Julio Cesar Chavez. So it was like meant to be. So
And I got to meet one of them.
Yeah.
One of your twins. We got to meet Angel. Phenomenal, amazing human being. Very gorgeous, beautiful, and just inside and out as well.
I appreciate that.
I heard you have more than two, though.
Yeah.
I was not aware of that. How many
Yeah.
children do you have?
I have a total of 5.
Oh my
Yeah,
gosh.
I have 5 kids.
You got a whole daycare there.
2 older daughters and then 3 sons. So and I'm a
Wow.
grandpa too.
Wow, I did not know that
yeah.
either. Okay. Now you mentioned that you never actually competed. Why not? What set you in this direction rather than the competing direction?
You know what? My dad was his background's in martial arts.
Oh.
So he did kung fu training, so and it was like real old school stuff. So he did kung fu, and his belief was kung fu was for self-defense, defending your family, defending yourself, It wasn't about points. It wasn't like he competed, So going into the boxing thing, he just didn't believe in competing, So, even though as a kid I wanted to, just never did,
So we're talking Washington, right?
Yep.
So
I was born and raised in Seattle, Washington.
Oh, I love Seattle.
Yeah, Seattle. I grew up there. I didn't leave there until I was like 23. But my parents are migrant workers, Mexican, So I'm Chicano, Mexican American. My mom's from California, Fresno. My dad's from Texas, Corpus Christi. Migrated, to Washington State.
Nice.
I've never heard of a Mexican kung fu fighter. How did he
That's
get
crazy.
into kung fu?
Well, Seattle it's like a melting pot of a bunch of cultures.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like the Karate Kid thing. Like one of the neighbors, was out there doing Tai Chi, and my dad just kind of just was there like a kid and learned, and and back then really too, like the Chinese culture, they didn't really open up to other races and cultures, but for whatever reason, he liked my dad, and my dad got really soaked up a lot of knowledge from him.
Nice.
So what made you go down the boxing route rather than continue with kung fu?
I'm just a fan of the sport, like growing up and and watching the fights, the Roberto Durans and the Hearns and Haglers, and I remember my dad watching boxing, and we're watching it with him, and at that time, at that age, I was probably like, whatever, 10, 11, 12 or whatever.
Wow.
I wasn't really familiar with how the sport was scored or anything like that. But just the love of the sport really got me into it,
So at what point did you realize, hey, like I want to do this? Right? Did that come a little bit later on, or were you at a younger age? Did you realize you wanted to get more involved in the sport at a different capacity?
You know what? Not really. I think I knew I wanted my sons to compete. I liked the sport. I never thought I would be here, where I'm at now. But when they were young, I didn't even plan on like coaching my sons. I'm not a boxing coach, I feel like I really didn't have the know-how to teach, kids how to box, So at 7 years old, I took them around gyms, and they wouldn't even take kids at 7 years old.
He mentioned that.
Yeah, yeah, we had that conversation with him.
They wouldn't even take kids at 7 years old. So I met a guy that ran like a summer program, and he was like, "Oh, I'll train your kids." And I was like, "All right, that's good." So we went to his gym, and he's like flying around paper airplanes and stuff. And I was like, "Nah, this isn't what I want."
Flying
This
around
is not the
paper
kind of
airplanes.
this is not the kind of training that I want.
Right.
You know what I mean? I was like, I could totally do that. So we kind of teamed up with him, and we ended up. I ended up helping him, like train. And he's like, "Hey, bro, you pretty much know the basics, because I had a little bit of background in boxing, being around, like I said before, like training with my uncles and stuff. And so we kind of teamed up together, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I can do the summer programs. We can make some money." And I was like, "Hey, sounds great. Let's open a gym, And I didn't think it would, I'd still be doing it now.
So where was that? Was that here?
I was here in Vegas.
That was here in Vegas. Okay. So
my first gym was up on Spring Mountain in Jones, and that was in like 2007.
okay.
Oh my gosh, almost 20 years ago.
Yeah, 2007. Oh no, let me take that back. 2007. It was actually right before the recession, so like 2008ish.
2008.
Yeah, it was right around that time. So opened up a gym, a huge gym, because he was kind of like more the business guy, and he had this business plan of having all these kids and making this money. And I was like, "Hey man, who doesn't want to make money, right?"
Yeah, of course.
And so we opened this big gym. It was huge, had 2 rings, and we even starting out, he had some connections in boxing. So we had Jeff Mayweather was there training his fighters. So the young Marcos Maidana and
Wow.
Robert Guerrero when he fought Casides,
Yeah.
and all these guys were doing camps in our gym. So I was exposed really quick to high level training and high level boxing. And so one of the guys that came into the gym was Kenny Adams. Rest in peace. He passed away.
Yeah.
But I was like, man, this guy really knows what he's doing. He was an ex-Olympic coach and stuff like that. So I grabbed the little timer and whatever he wanted me to do, and I just soaked up as much as I could, And he was, my kids were little, so he was helping me with the amateur, this is how you win amateur fights, and this is how they score, and, so I kind of just sucked it up and, and started my little team, and that's where I'm at, That's how I started.
You would not have been where you're at now if it wasn't for the twins wanting to get into boxing.
You know what? It really wasn't up to them. I'm a Mexican dad, and my dad was really tough on me, and boxing isn't an easy sport. So kids always gravitate to things that are easy. Boxing isn't easy, So behind every good boxer, there's someone that's pushing them.
Of course.
There's no, pizza parties and, orange wedges after you lose. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I tell people in boxing, there's nothing more primal than watching your kid fight.
Yeah, of course.
You imagine, you're a proud rooster owner and you raise these roosters to go fight, and you're like, yeah, my rooster is a champion, or in a brutal sport, you got dog fighting and other kind of sports, that people are really proud of, like their
Passionate,
bloodline,
yeah.
and I got the best dogs, I got the best rooster or whatever, in a very primal way, like the twins are my roosters.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And not even that, my daughter fought. My daughter made the U.S. team, So
Goodness
not
gracious.
only the twins, my daughter made the team. Her name's Richard Barrientes. She trained with Shakur, and
Wow.
and when the first year they had Olympic boxing for the girls where they can make a team, she made the team, so she got to travel internationally.
How badass.
She went to the Olympic training center, so she got some good experience.
Wow.
The twins right behind her, they both made the team. They got international experience. They got to travel around. They were traveling more places than I was,
Wow.
I'd never even left the country, and they were like in Bulgaria and Hungary and England
Wow.
and, traveling the world at 15, 16 years old with the U.S. team. So it was pretty cool.
So this is clearly like a family sport,
Yeah,
family
yeah.
business here. I can only imagine what it's like when one of the boys fight what it's like as a family just to sit there and watch and the planning that goes into it, the prepping that goes into it, live, breathe, eat boxing.
Yeah, that's
So let's talk modern day. Let's talk today.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, obviously amateurs. I mean, that's how you got started.
Yep.
Today, now you're here. You know, you're here at the Pound for Pound gym, which is probably one of the most recognizable gyms in the world. You have the twins.
Yep.
Here working with you and a number of different fighters that we'll get into in a second. But tell us first about the twins. Tell us, like, what are they doing right now? Where do you see them going? Both Chavez and Angel.
The twins are in a great place. You know, like I mentioned just a minute ago about how they had all this amateur experience. You know, so I think their level where they're at right now, they're young. You know, they're 23 years old. You know what I mean? And they're just in a great position in their career. They started really young. You know, they went pro when they were 17.
Mm-hmm.
You know, fast forward, they're with all the right people.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Boxing is a huge business, and being, you know, having the right people around you and the right team around you is huge, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. So they're signed with Box Lab.
Yep. They're signed
Right
with
now.
Box Lab. They started out on the PVC platforms. You know, he fought on Fox and, you know, on Fox Sports and all that stuff. So they got exposed really quick on being on TV and, you know, and stuff like that. So they're both at a level right now where, you know, Angel's in the rankings in the WBA, you know?
Yeah.
Angel, you know, Chavez is right behind him. Fights aren't going to get easier. So
Yeah.
I honestly think for their size and the physical attributes they have, like at 122, in the top 10, I mean, there might be one or two people that'll give them a hard time. I think we run through most of the top 10, you know?
I want to know what your reaction was like when you found out they were getting into modeling.
Yeah.
I mean, that's great. I mean, at the end of the day, like, you know, I come from a whole different world, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like, you know, my childhood was a little bit different than theirs, you know? So, you know, I'm proud to have them be able to break the mold,
Yeah,
you know
the
what I
mold.
mean, of what I came from, you know what I mean? So for them to be modeling and traveling and you're doing all these positive things, you know, just like I feel like I did my job, you know, as far as like breaking that cycle of, you know, going to prison and, you know, being in the streets and, you know what I mean, stuff like that, because that's what I come from, you know. So,
I had no idea. I was going to ask, like you mentioned, very different upbringing, if I may. I
Oh
wanna know a
yeah.
little bit
That's,
more
I
about
mean,
that.
at the end of the day, like, you know, I grew up mid-90s, you know, the drugs, the gangbanging, you know, all that stuff. So, you know, for them to be like walking the runway in Paris and, you know, flying to New York and stuff like that, like it's a good feeling.
Wow, it is. So back to the twins out. So they're both at 122 at 23, like,
Yep.
and they're
Super
tall. They're
bantamweight.
what 5'10"?
Yeah, like right around the 5'10", 5'11".
Is it fair to say they could probably, you see them fighting at 147, they could probably 126, 130,
Yeah, I
135,
think
147 is probably the cap, you think?
Yep. I think at their age, you know, and where they're at, they're definitely gonna fill in. You know
all
what I
these
mean?
different divisions.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. They're gonna be able to fill in and really move up in the rankings and in the weight.
Yeah.
You know, I think they're gonna do their most damage at like 35.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think at 30, 35, they'll
Oof, all that
be right around.
experience.
You know, they're going to be right around that 27-year-old age where they're going to be full-grown men.
Oh yeah.
And, you know, even now, like every 6 months, you see them getting stronger, a little bit thicker, you know.
Well,
like,
he mentioned how much he loves to eat.
yeah, no, they're definitely foodies. I think every boxer is, you know what I mean? Because they're deprived of you
All the
know,
good stuff.
yeah, like they fought so many times on Thanksgiving and Christmas, and so they missed all that, you know, birthdays, you know, they're making weight. So yeah, that's just part of the sport. That's
So when Angel got into the rankings, I mean, that was a tough fight.
No,
back
yeah.
in Orlando.
Yep.
I mean, what did it feel like for you as a father and a coach? Like, what was going through your mind after that fight?
you know what? I expect a lot from my sons. You know, I remember them being at like 12 years old, and they went on streaks of not losing fights for like 3 and 4 years. I mean, we did everything. We fought in every state. We fought every tournament. There's not a tournament that they never won, you know? And we traveled everybody knows who the twins were, especially because they're twins, right?
Yeah.
So everybody from the East Coast to the West Coast, that's like Texas, you know, you name it, they knew who they were because we didn't lose, you know? And I think they just, at that point when they were like winning so much, that I just expect a whole another level for them. So them fighting in a fight like that, like in Orlando, like I expect to win. I'm not, there's no doubt in my mind. Like I'm super confident in their capabilities, you know?
Yeah.
That when they fight a fight like that, I'm not worried about winning or losing. I just worry about how good we're going to look when we win. That's it. I mean, I just want them to stop guys that never been stopped. You know, like in his fight there, he fought a guy with 25 fights with 14 knockouts. Angel had 14 fights. He had as many knockouts as we had fights. And I really wasn't worried about him not winning. I knew we were going to win. I just was wondering how we would win, if he was going to be able to like step on the gas and get the guy out of there, or if we're just going to box our way to a decision.
So why is that important? Tell our viewers why that's important to you. Why is it important as a trainer to look good in a fight like that?
I think at the end of the day, we're still putting on a show. So it's very important to give the fans what they want to see, and everybody wants to see people getting stopped, you know? So in a business like this, because you can't call it a sport, it's a business, you know?
Yeah.
So unless you're putting on a good performance, and it doesn't even matter, like, you know, he could have got dropped 2 times and got up and win. It'd be even better for boxing, right? Because that's what people want to see. They want to see Rocky.
Yeah.
Right? So if you go in there, you put on a show, and you're able to stop a guy, you know, that's never been stopped before, or somebody that they thought would give you a hard time, and you know what I mean? It's just like a cherry on top of the sundae, right? You win, and then you look good winning, you know? So it's very important. It's very important for the sport, you know?
Absolutely.
I wouldn't be me if I didn't ask.
Yeah.
Do you feel like your relationship as a coach, coaching your children, many times I hear that like the father figure being with the coach also affects the relationship. Do you feel like being their coach and being that hard of them affected your relationship negatively at all as their father?
I think when I first started, I learned early on, because I worked with other kids, right? So we had like an amateur team. I feel like I'm a good coach because I feel like you got to separate a coach and being a father, right? So I've never had a bag hanging at my house. I own the gym, so I own Pound for Pound Boxing. So I've never had a bag hanging at the house. I never had them doing stuff at the house. I learned early on that I just kept it at the gyms, right? So, you know, from like 8 to 10, I'm not gonna lie, like, you know, they had a bad day, I'd like fucking slap them on the side of the head and be like, hey bro, like, you know, what the hell were you doing? Like, you know, but I felt like it had a reverse effect on them. You know, they started like not wanting the sport, you know, not wanting to, you know, give it their all. So I started doing like, you know, like we come to the gym, they weren't training hard. I'd tell them to take their stuff off and sit down and don't hit the bags, you know? So boxing was the only outlet they had. I told them, okay, if you're going to box, you can't play baseball, you can't play football, you can't do anything else. All you're going to do is box. You know, if you want to stop boxing, then you can play football, but you're not going to do both. You know, and even like my daughter, I know my daughter, you know, boxing ain't the thing they want to do, but everybody wants to please their parents, right?
Yeah.
So they did it for me. They do it to please, you know, your son plays, you know, little league fucking baseball, right?
Yeah.
Because he wants to please the dad because the dad played baseball. You know, same thing in boxing. You know, my kids wanted to please me, so they did everything they could do when we got to the gym. You know, and I think once you teach a kid how to win, then they're on cruise control. My son's won so much that was the feeling they chased. You know, like a drug addict. Yeah, like a drug addict chases their drug, right? That's how they were. Like when we went to tournaments, it was like, man, you know, I'm gonna get this belt. You see all these belts here in this gym? They're all their
Hundreds.
belts. Yeah,
it's crazy.
It's their belts.
I wasn't ready for that answer. I genuinely did not think you were going to answer that way, but it sounds like having good boundaries of this is my role as a coach and this is my role as a father. We will not
You
put
have to
those
separate
things
them
together.
Especially not having bags at the house. I mean, I didn't really think about that.
That's
you know,
a
we've
great
talked to-
boundary. That is
yeah,
a
we've-
great boundary and a great tip.
I just wouldn't have thought of it, but you know, it makes a lot of sense because you do have to separate it.
Yeah.
You know,
I have really passionate parents here, and I try to tell them. They come in so young, like 8 years old, 9 years old, and I just tell them, if you want them to box, then you have to leave boxing here. Only come here and give it your all for an hour and a half. Go home, and don't take it home.
Let them be kids. Yeah.
Yeah, don't go home and tell them like, oh man, you did this bad and you did that bad and you did this bad. Who wants to hear that? Who wants to come back the next day?
Exactly.
Nobody wants to come back the next day and then, and then you do bad again and you got to hear your dad and
Yeah. It's like going to work, your boss yelling at you.
And then your boss goes home.
Goes home and still yells at you. There's no peace there.
Yeah,
That's awful.
so it sucks,
Yeah, so it's really cool what you're doing with the kids, right? There's so many coaches and trainers out there that don't have a program, for kids, and it's just great how you give back, right? And then do you pull from that, or do you see maybe a couple in there that because there's fighters you have at the gym today that have been with you since they're 10, 11 years old, and now they're fighting professionally, right?
Yeah, I think the key to working with professionals is being grounded. Sometimes when you're working with the elite fighters or elite athletes, you kind of lose sight of like the foundation of the boxing. You know what I mean? So literally, I'm in here in the morning, with some of the best fighters you see on TV.
Oh yeah, in the world.
Mario Barrios and Caleb Plant and Brian Mendoza and Brian Flores, my twins, you guys you see on TV. And at the same time, you come back at 4:30 and you see me working with an 8-year-old kid that never even put on gloves before, But I think,
and those are word of mouth, right? 'Cause this is a private. This is a private gym, right?
Yeah,
it's not
like-
open to the public. You have to know someone.
Yeah,
right. I know you have multiple kids here that are fighting, national champions.
Yep.
Here you're constantly working with the kids, giving back, taking them into tournaments.
yeah.
So yeah, that's great.
Yeah, so
I want to know a little bit. I've never had an opportunity to talk to someone that runs a program like that. I constantly am exposed to a lot of kids with like behavioral problems, anger issues. Parents bring them to me saying like, I don't know what to do. And many, many times I say like, have you looked into any kind of, obviously besides a bunch of other things that I tell them, but one of those things that I highly recommend is boxing. One, I love it. And two, I've seen drastic changes like really fast with these kids. It really has taught them how to not necessarily get rid of their anger, but more so kind of learn how to control it and learn how to direct it towards the right, the right time, right place, and not take it out on the wrong people and the wrong things. What has been your direct experience seeing these kids? How amazing it must be to see them transition. What has been your experience with that?
You know what? Some kids that parents bring their kids here, like thinking that like this is the cure all, like, oh, I'll come in here and we'll show them how to fight, and you know what I mean, or protect themselves, or vice versa. Bring them in here and try to get them beat up by kids that can fight. You know?
Oh my gosh!
So I've had parents come in here.
Parents.
Yeah, I've had
No,
parents.
that's common, more common than you think.
Yeah, I've had parents come in and be like, you know what? I brought my kid here because he thinks he can fight. He got in trouble at school, and you know what I mean. And I think I've experienced a lot of stuff, like with other coaches and other gyms. It's like the Karate Kid, you got the real humble gym, and then you got the gym full of, super like cocky.
They think they know it all. Yeah.
At the end of the day, I think it just being well-rounded, like, you know what I mean? You come in here, you have respect for everybody around you, and, it's about treating everybody the way you want to be treated. You know what I mean?
Love that.
And getting back to your question, it was like, I've noticed, like, if you bring, a kid that's unruly and not talking back to the parents and not doing any good in school, but you bring them in an environment where everybody's listening. And, I feel like I'm like a new style coach. So I teach the technical part of boxing. I don't teach the like, oh yeah, you got to, kill, mess this guy up.
Yeah.
I always tell my kids from 8 years old to the pros that I work with that the smarter fighter will always win. You know what I mean? Being smart in the ring is the most important thing. You know what I mean? Being smart, knowing how to use the jab, knowing how to control distance, knowing how to, position yourself so you can counter. That's all critical. So in order to teach that, you have to have an environment like that. So you have to have an environment where everybody's on the same page. There's nobody better than the next guy. There's nobody, I'm not putting kids in there to beat up on each other. You know what I mean? Everyone's here to learn. And if you bring a kid that's unruly and doesn't have that at home, and you bring him into an environment like that here, he just falls right in line.
I love that.
He falls right in line.
So I'll send all my problematic kids your way.
I promise you, if I put him on the bag for an hour, we do an hour, we're doing bag drills for an hour, he's going to leave here like a whole different guy, like.
I love that.
Yeah.
All right. So let's get into the meat and the potatoes, right? I mean, you named some big names. Mario Barrios, Caleb Plant, Brian Mendoza. Tell us about some of the fighters that train here at the Pound for Pound gym.
Those are probably like the biggest names I've worked with, even Brandon Figueroa. So like my background, like me doing all the amateurs thing, and people know that I have had a lot of experience. I was kind of brought in. My boys got signed by Bob Santos, and he brought me into like the pro world. I had worked in a couple corners before him, but I worked some big corners with Bob.
Oh yeah.
We worked with.
How many world title fights total?
I think we won like 4 in a row.
Wow.
Yeah, we had like we were on a
Exciting.
streak. You know what I mean?
2022.
Yeah, like right around that year we started, and we had a great role. With Carlos Adames, Hector Garcia, Alberto Pollo.
Wow.
And then Mario Barrios.
Barrios, yeah.
So that we won like 4 in a row in a year. So we were like on a streak. I think it was a good combination of his like real strict like father figure kind of role, in all those guys' lives. A lot of them guys lack discipline. Bob is a real good disciplinary guy. You know what I mean? Kept everybody in line, kept the camps running smooth. He worked in a lot of big fights, a lot of big camps. And then me being the technical guy, was just like the match that kind of put them guys over the edge. You know what I mean? So we got some really good wins, and I got a lot of good experience from, working them corners and being seen in those corners. So fast forwarding after the last couple of years of working some of them big corners, I pick up guys like they see me in them corners. So I'm working with Brian Flores and Brian Mendoza. They're coming up like probably this coming year, going to be in some big fights, I'm still working out. Me and Bob are still working with Mario Barrios.
And then
Which
how about
I heard that there's allegedly, I know it's not confirmed, I heard allegedly Mario Barrios is supposed to be fighting Ryan Garcia.
I mean, I heard that in the air too. I mean, social media like kind of swirls around all the names and stuff, but who knows? I think Barrios is in a great position. He's had some good fights, and in that 147-pound weight class, I mean, he's definitely the guy.
He's right there. Yeah,
he has the green belt, man.
Yeah.
Everybody wants that green belt. So
I can't believe he's only 147. He looks so much like meatier.
Oh yeah, he has had a big.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of these guys. I mean, Barrios definitely is a big guy, but he has good work ethic and good discipline, and that's that's all needed to make those weights where you're super competitive.
Hey, since we're on Barrios, I want to ask some questions about the Pacquiao.
Yeah.
Barrios Pacquiao fight that was a couple months ago.
Yep.
Wow, that was a big fight. It was
huge.
Yeah, huge fight. Probably the biggest fight of the year to date for 2024.
I know it's the most money I've dropped on a fight before. Yes, those were some pricey tickets.
We were there sitting ringside watching you. What was that experience like? Tell us about that.
I mean, it was crazy. I've been in a lot of big fights. Mario fought on the Jake Paul and Tyson. He was on that card, and Hector fighting in Washington D.C. when he fought Tank, and I've been in some like really lively arenas that being the main event, and there was nothing like that Pacquiao crowd. Man,
it really was.
It was crazy. It was crazy. the energy that was in that arena at that day was nuts, you know?
Yeah.
So it was a great experience being on that huge stage. And, you know, you're fighting a legend. You're fighting Pacquiao.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, who would have thought that, you know, even Mario, we talked about it, and he was like, man, I could fighting Pacquiao. You know, you watch him, you know, fighting. I'm a Pacquiao fan, you know what I
yeah.
mean? You know,
We all are, right?
Yeah, who
Who
isn't,
isn't?
you know?
Huge.
Yeah, so Barrios going into a fight like that is just like, it's a great fight. Great for boxing.
Oh yeah.
You know, they put on a show. Everybody kind of got what they wanted to see, you know? So Pacquiao still has a little bit left, you know? Barrios did his job, you know?
Yeah.
You know, you can see however, you know, you can judge it however you want to see it. If you're a Pacquiao fan, you might have leaned towards Pacquiao, you know? But if you were a scoring fan and you know how to score a professional fight, you would see that you would edge Barrios out
Yeah,
in
no
that
doubt.
win.
You
You know
don't
what
think
I
it was
mean?
No
scored
doubt.
appropriately?
I mean, I think it was. I mean, you can't complain about the decision. You know what I mean? I think Pacquiao being who he is, you know, and it doesn't matter if he comes out first or second or whatever. He's the A side. He's the one that sold all the tickets, right?
Yeah.
So you know, it was like the Philippines in there. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like
but it was
huge.
flurries. I mean, I don't want to get technical, but it was flurries at the end of each round.
Well, that's what I mean. If you know how to score a fight and you're scoring, you know, effective punching and ring generalship and, you know, the way you're supposed to score, you know what I
Right.
mean? I think Pacquiao got a lot of credit for being Pacquiao.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Good way to put it.
Kind of like a Floyd fight, you know? Sometimes Floyd didn't do a lot in his rounds, but he was winning every single round because he was being Floyd, right?
Yeah. Caleb Plant. Tell us about Caleb. I see
Oh, I love
Caleb
Caleb.
frequent
We
the gym
haven't seen
often.
him. We haven't seen him on any fights in a while
Yeah,
since
yeah.
his last loss.
I was, you know, I was in that camp, you know. I mean, I worked like the pre-camp with him, and we had great chemistry. We like worked great together. He super good guy, man. Like, you know,
Love him.
I mean, I think in public and stuff, he's like kind of quiet and conserved, like as far as like interaction with a lot of people. But he's a great guy. You know what I mean? I got to know him and his wife Jordan,
yeah.
and Charlie, and his dad, and I mean, just good family. You know what I mean? Like good people. I really liked working
Where
with
do you
them.
see him going from here?
I think he's at a like a transition in his career. You know what I mean? I think he's still really viable in the sport.
Yeah,
you
no
know what I
doubt.
mean? Like
Yeah.
he's very talented. You know, he's a talented fighter. I think there's a lot of things that in his last fight that he could have probably adjusted. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And I think he's smart enough to know what those things are.
Yeah, yeah. The
You know what I
adjustments he
mean?
needs to make.
Yeah. And so I think he's around good people, and
Yeah.
and he's very smart. You know, so I see him going right back to where
absolutely.
he. Yeah, I think he's going to go
I-
right back to where
I
he
hope
left
so.
off at.
I hope so. I cried
Yeah.
for that loss. I think that was
Yeah.
one of the 2 fights that I've actually cheered up for a complete stranger.
Yeah, yeah.
I really, just because I know that his work ethic. Like
I see him coming back strong.
He worked really
Yeah.
hard for that fight.
Yeah, I think he comes back really strong.
Yeah, no doubt.
And refocused and you know, and just jump right back into the big fights. You know, I don't see him like, you know, taking 5 steps back and starting out, you know, fighting somebody not on his level.
Yeah,
you know,
no.
he's
No
a high
doubt.
level fighter.
As he
No
should.
doubt.
Yeah, he should.
So,
Yeah.
so Brian Mendoza. Tell us about Brian.
Yes. Brian's another, you know, good talent. You know, he's, you know, he pulled off a great upset,
Yeah.
beating Fundora. You know,
Yeah.
that was huge. You know what I mean? So, yeah, Brian has a lot of skills. You know, strong for his weight class. You know, we've been working really hard in the gym. So Brian is like my first, like I'm the head trainer in that. You know,
Yeah.
everybody else, like with Caleb, I you know, I help Breadman. With Barrios, you know, I help him Bob. With even with Brandon Figueroa, you know, I help the dad in one of his corners. You know what I mean? So I've been kind of working, helping out in the camps and stuff like this. But Brian Mendoza, like I've been getting him on track. Like, you know what I mean? Like working on stuff that he the little flaws that he has in his last fights, and what he can do better. And so we've really been like dissecting, and I want to make sure that he really looks good.
Will he be fighting before the end of the year, do you think?
I'm not sure. I mean, like I said, boxing is a business. So whatever the next best business move for him is, him and his manager and his team. I kind of just try to stick to what I do.
Yeah.
I'm a trainer.
Yeah.
I want to ask a little bit about that. As a coach and as a trainer, we've talked several times before here of how boxing is 20% physical, 80% mental. What are some of the things what are your tactics? How do you train the mental part as a trainer, as a coach? How do you help with the mental roadblocks with these guys?
I think me working with the kids really helps me because these guys are just big kids. Honestly, they are. They're like big kids. You know what I mean? So like you're dealing with the personalities and the lack of discipline. I think really kicks in some of the older fighters. You know what I mean? Where like some people, that made it to the big money, it's hard to stay motivated, And some of the guys that haven't made it to the money, they got other obligations like, keeping a roof over their head and,
Right. Of
course.
keeping,
Kids.
kids and families and girlfriends and everything else that comes along. You know what I mean? So just keeping them, the mental part of it is just like, building a fighter is just like you said, it's mental. So they have to have the confidence. You know what I mean? So whatever that takes in the gym, if it's some guys, it's like, doing an extra 5 rounds on the bag. Another guy, it's like not letting him have bad rounds. If you leave a guy in there too long and he has 3 bad rounds at the end of 10 rounds, then they get all down on themselves. If I would have stopped it at 7, he would have left that day feeling like $1 million, like he could conquer the world.
Very strategic. Has
So
there
a
ever been a
trainer,
time?
yeah.
Very strategic.
You don't think about that stuff, right?
No, I don't. Well, I'm learning a lot from you right now. Has there ever been a time where you have said, like, this is beyond what I can help you with? You need, like, to go talk to a professional, man, because this is
Every
beyond,
day.
this is beyond the ring.
I'm the dad, the brother, the coach, I'm everything. Like, manager, the promoter, I'm all that in one, like people come to me with all that. And then at the end of the day, I can give people advice, but I'm just the coach. I'm just the trainer, I tell people all the time, they're like, hey, coach, what do you think? Now, if you want advice on opponents, like, oh, do I think we should take this guy? No, I'll give you all that advice. I think that should be left to the coach. Like,
yeah, of course.
I know my fighter in and out. I know who he can beat, who he can't beat. I know the styles that give him a hard time.
The coach
I know
and the coach only, actually.
Yes. And then they relay that to the manager, and then the manager relies that to the promoter. I think there's a chain of command that is very important in boxing, and I try to stay in my place. I'm not a manager. I'm not a promoter. I'm just a coach. You give me the person that we're supposed to get ready for, how many rounds we're going to get ready for him, and I'm going to make sure, and the date we're ready, the date that we have, and I'm going to make sure he's ready. That's my job.
Yeah.
Other than that, I don't want to hear anything else.
So let's keep going down this list. Now, Brian Flores.
Yes.
Tell us about Brian.
Brian's another great talent. His only loss was to Lindolfo Delgado in a split decision. Like, he's a true Mexican fighter.
A tough loss.
Yeah,
too.
yeah, that was a tough loss. I mean, I thought he won. You know what I mean? I thought he did enough, but again, I'm not a judge, right?
I'm so tired of these split decisions. I'm sure I've mentioned that probably 30 times. I'm so tired of split decisions.
In a fight like that, though, I've been through the amateurs and all that stuff, and so I really pay attention to like the scoring system and how it's scored, and I know it's different, but the same. You know what I mean? Holding the center of the ring, staying off the ropes. Throwing clean punches and effective punches is very important. You know what I mean? Sometimes you get fighters that go forward and they put a lot of pressure, but they get hit a lot, and I've learned. Judging is just based on your opinion, right? So my opinion of the fight on where I was sitting, from what angle.
Yes.
From what angle? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Could determine the outcome of the fight.
Yes.
You get, that's why you get splits, because this guy was on that side of the ring and he saw all the punches
Yeah,
that
entirely different. Yeah.
yeah, that that the right corner was throwing, right? And then the guys that are on the opposite side saw the punches that the blue corner was throwing, you know what I mean? And you end up with a split decision, And then you break it down. You could break it down even further, You could break it down into where you're at, right? So if you're in Texas and you have Texas judges,
Yes.
a lot of these and the guys from Texas.
If you're the B-side fighter.
You could be the A side. It doesn't matter. But I've watched, I sit myself in the judging seat and I'm like, man, I saw this kid when he was 8 years old. You know what I mean? And now he's on this big stage, and that was a close round. You know what? I'm going to give it to the guy it's human nature, right? Sometimes,
so you're like a biased.
yeah, you're totally biased. You know what I
Shouldn't
mean?
be that way.
It shouldn't be,
do they
but
sign like an oath or something like
human
that?
nature, human nature. I tell
It's
people all the
flawed.
time, I used to tell my boys, you're the bigger fighter. Anytime you're fighting a smaller fighter, it's always human nature you're rooting for the smaller guy.
Well, I think that's why they tried that. What was it? The fourth judge or the AI judge, or something like that, didn't go very well. I think they tried it for that reason, like an unbiased opinion. But we need that humanist too, though.
Yeah,
It's hard.
there's judges, there's styles.
yeah.
Some judges like certain styles.
Yep.
You
can break.
they
You
want,
can even
they want
break it-
someone
yeah.
coming forward. It's just everyone's.
You can break it down as far as you want. You can even go down to where they're from. Like guy from Mexico City. I grew up in Mexico City. He was he grew up two doors down from me. You know what I mean?
That's my neighbor. That's
even
my
though
uncle.
exactly. You know what I mean? You could just like Mexican judges might vote
In
in favor of Mexican fighters. I mean, you could just break it down, and it all plays a part in the judging. You know what I mean? So you can't really. You just got to make sure that you're in there. You're putting on a show. You're giving the fans what they want to see, and the judging's going to be what it's going to be, right?
Yeah.
If you leave it to the judges, that's why they always tell you, don't leave it to the judges.
Don't leave it to the judges.
Yeah. So.
All right.
I don't think that's going to change.
So let's just go down the list a little more. Eros Carrera.
Yes.
I know you're working on a fight with Eros fairly soon. You're trying to hopefully get him in the ring before the end of the year.
Yep.
Tell us about Eros.
Even Eros, like I feel like I sound like a broken record because I got a lot of talented guys in here. You know what I mean? I mean, these guys are like guys with like one loss. You know what I mean? 2 losses. Like they're really like up there. Eros is another really good fighter.
He was ranked up number 5 at the WBA for a good period of time. Then he suffered a loss.
Yep.
And that set him back. But now he's back on pace, right? What do you think about Eros?
I think Eros is, like I said, a great fighter. I think he's an older fighter too, so he's not getting no bigger. His weight's not fluctuating. So I think he, at this point in his career, if we fight at the correct weight, I think he's a problem. I really think that he's fought at 118 a couple of his fights. You know what I mean?
122 at one point, then he dropped to
122.
118.
Yep. And then I feel like at a high level, if we took a good run at like 115, I think he can make it. He got down to like 117 his last fight. I think if we really take a run at 115, I think he can really make some noise at 115. So hopefully, talking to him and talking to his team and stuff, we can get him a fight at 115, and he can make a good run at 115. Have a good year. Hopefully, 2026 will be a good year for him.
Yeah.
He'll be in a good fight, pull off some good upsets, and be in a big fight.
Yeah. So Blazin Rosselli, this is the name we've been talking. Right? We've brought his name up multiple times in the last few shows. Tell us about Blazin.
Blazin, from Hawaii. So I lived in Hawaii for a while. My twins were born in Hawaii. My daughter was born in Hawaii. My wife's from Hawaii. So I have like the Hawaii, the island, Las Vegas connection.
You could pass as Hawaiian. I think it's been passed on to you.
I'm a big Mexican, so the people thought I was like Islander or whatever.
When you were in Hawaii?
growing, even growing up, because in Seattle it's like a
You
big
can pass as
mixing,
Hawaiian.
Yeah, no doubt.
Samoan,
mixing pot in Seattle. So I was always like, are you Mexican or Samoan? But anyway, being out there, I have a good connection with they call Las Vegas the 9th island of Hawaii. So there's a lot of Hawaii.
So many Hawaiians.
A lot of Hawaii people here and stuff. So anyway, Blazin, young guy, same age as my boys. Being in the island, you're kind of limited to the experience level that you get out there, you know? So he didn't have a lot of amateur fights, but coming here, his dad trusted me with his career. His dad ran a boxing program. He was a coach back in Hawaii. You know, John trusted me with his sons and brought him here and took him. He had some amateur fights. We turned him pro. Really strong kid.
Wow, this is full circle. Now it's coming back to me what he mentioned. You're the Rich.
Yeah.
He mentioned.
Yeah, 9-0.
Yep.
He just had a win. I know he has another fight coming up fairly soon.
Yep.
We're going to try to get him in the ring before the end of the year. 6'3" Filipino. Do they even exist?
Man, he's the biggest Filipino.
He has to be the biggest Filipino out there right now in the sport.
Definitely. I think in the sport.
I mean,
don't think
at that weight, at that 160,
Yeah, I don't think there's any heavyweight Filipinos.
I don't know.
You know what I mean?
Any.
So
Yeah.
I think he's probably one of the biggest ones. You know, height wise, 6'3". You know, and as young as he is, you know what I mean. He has a lot of growing left. You know, like filling in. I could see him definitely fighting and you know higher weights and. Like really strong kid, you know. He has a lot of knockouts, and I don't see that changing, you know.
So 9-0, seven knockouts.
Yeah,
9-0. Man, he's just a big kid.
Yep.
And
been
he
in the
swings.
ring. Yeah, been in the ring with everybody. You know, being
Good
here in
chin,
Vegas,
yeah.
good chin. You know.
And he's still learning, right? He's still.
Yeah, definitely. Like, I think everybody at that age is
So young.
is kind of still. Finding themselves, you know, you look at like a young Canelo when he was like fought Floyd and stuff. Like you watch him fight, and every fight was a little bit different. He hadn't really found himself.
Yeah.
Like, so it's kind of like that with these guys. You know, they're kind of like finding themselves, seeing what they can do good, what they need to get rid of in their style, and what works for them at a high level. You know, because everything as you start fighting in these 8, 10, 12 round fights, everything slows down. You know what I mean? So you're not in there just throwing punches. You got to be a little
Technique.
bit smarter in your approaches, you know, in these longer fights, you know. So great kid, great family, you know. He has a bright future.
So I know the who was supposed to fight this weekend. It was supposed to be
Fundura. Yeah,
and Thurman. Obviously, it got postponed, I believe, until January. But just for funsies, who would you have had?
I had Fundora winning that fight.
Yeah?
I think Fundora is getting a little bit better with his defense. He's not. I mean, he still gets hit, but he's not getting hit as much. Just the physical attributes that he has, like how tall he is and how
his
long he
favor,
is.
for sure.
He's just hard to deal with, you know. And Thurman, not to say, you know, he has a lot of experience, and I think he's kind of at the end of his career, like where. But I'm sure he trained really hard for this fight, and I'm sure he was going to give it his all to try to upset, you know, somebody like Fundora. But I just didn't see it happening. I was leaning towards Fundora, maybe even stopping Thurman. You know, just being because he's a little bit older.
I just thought about it now that it got postponed to January. That means that they have to stay disciplined throughout the holidays. I just thought about that. That's big time.
Is there a date on the fight? Is it
Sometime in January. I don't remember when.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
What about Jake Paul and Tank?
I mean,
What are your predictions?
I know you work with Tank.
Yeah,
and Calvin.
The twins have been in his camp a couple times, you know. So we're kind of like the guy they call if anybody fights Ryan, you know, they call the twins because they got kind of like the build like Ryan, you know.
Yeah.
So they're tall and long. So us working with Tank, we worked with him for the Leo Santa Cruz fight. We worked with him for the Ryan fight. You know, we worked with him in another camp too. I'm not sure. But we've done a lot. The boys have sparred him a lot.
Frank Martin, right? He was here for Frank Martin.
Yep. So just knowing them and what they bring to the table. I mean, I know Calvin's going to be ready. I'm sure they're treating it like a real fight.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Even though it's an exhibition.
I hope so.
Yeah.
I really do hope so.
Yeah.
I am really excited to see Tank back in the ring. Extremely excited to see him.
Yeah. I think his IQ is really high.
He's a Tank.
One of the highest.
Yeah. No. I think you think about Tank, and the average person thinks about like how hard he hits and how he knocks these guys out and stuff. But he's really been doing it since he was little. His IQ is very high.
Yeah.
You know, he's not a dumb fighter. He knows how to set up punches. A lot of them knockouts that he's coming up with, it's not because he just got lucky. You know what I mean? It's he's setting them up. He knows what he's looking at. He's in the right position. He's throwing punches from the right angles, and he's getting the knockouts because he knows what he's doing. It's not because he's just getting lucky. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no
he has
doubt.
real power too. Yeah. You know, being in his camps, I've seen him stop. 147 pounders, 160 pounders. He's been in the ring with big guys, and it's funny because you think you'd be at such a disadvantage, but I think Tank has always fought smaller guys. So him fighting guys like Lamont Roach and Pitbull Cruz, those were the guys that gave him a hard time,
Yes, yeah.
and that was because they were the same size and height. So I think Tank generates a lot of power from getting under guys. So
Like Frank Martin, like Ryan Garcia.
like Leo Santa Cruz, and he got those spectacular knockouts, getting under the guys and coming
You're
up
right.
and
I
coming
never
up with
thought
his
about
power.
that.
So I think he might catch Jake Paul on the chin, and we're just gonna see how good Jake Paul's size and his chin is gonna hold up against the power of Tank. Tank is a small guy though, so. Does he have enough power to knock out a guy as big as
We don't need a
Jake Paul?
knockout. You don't need a knockout.
No, he'll
to win.
definitely outbox him.
Oh yeah,
There's
doubt.
no doubt in my mind.
Okay.
And no doubt in my mind if Tank goes in there just to box, he's gonna box circles around
Okay.
Jake Paul. But if he decides to knock him out, I'm sure he's gonna test his chin. We're just gonna see how good Jake Paul's chin is gonna be on that night.
We'll see.
Yep.
I'm excited for that one. I'm getting more and more excited as we talk about
Oh
it.
yeah.
Entertaining for
Yeah,
sure.
for sure,
Yeah,
entertaining.
So there's so many camps that you hold here. I mean, and there's so many trainers out there in the sport that just that you work with that come here to Vegas specifically to work with you. Tell us a little bit about that. Tell us about some of the camps that you host here and work some of the trainers and fighters that you work with.
I mean, me being in the amateur world, I think that really a lot of these guys are just like me coming out of the amateurs. You end up with one or two good fighters, and you're on. You know what I mean? You're like, everybody wants to be with a winning team, right? So if you're winning, these managers and promoters are going to feed you guys that are on that next level, or they think it's going to get to the next level because they want their fighters to be with a winning team. If you're a losing team, they're not trying to send you fighters, right?
Yeah, of course.
So, like you said, we've had some camps here. We had some PBC media days here. So everybody, the gym had great exposure. So, we had the Brandon Figueroas. The Figueroas came out here and held camp. The guy from Argentina, Puma.
Yeah, Puma.
Sergio,
Yeah.
Yep.
And he's
Fernando
getting,
Martinez.
he's getting ready to
yeah,
fight.
he's done a couple camps out
Bam.
here. He's getting ready to fight Bam. That's going to be a
Bam.
great fight. Of course, Barrios and all the guys that I mentioned before. Ismael Salas is actually in my gym right now. He had unfortunate. He had an accident at his gym. Somebody ran through the wall of his gym. So
Salas is here in the morning with Rolly and all his guys.
Rolly, Adamas.
Yeah.
Urslan Di Laura. He has a bunch of champions too. So the gym right now is like crazy.
I got to be
World-
here at
just world
11 a.m.
champions
I'm going to
everywhere.
be here at 11 a.m. tomorrow.
Yeah.
It's just amazing how many people frequent this facility. It's
yeah,
crazy.
So the next from now to the end of the year is going to be nuts. You know what I mean? So we have all these good talent, and it's good to have these guys in here because, my guys can spar with his guys, and the best of the best, produces great fights, right? So the preparation of his guys and my guys, some of my young guys that don't have a lot of experience, like the Blazing Rosilis and stuff like that, get in the ring with world champions and and learn
From them.
Sparring is about learning. So, the more, you get in there and you just kind of soak up some of that knowledge, like from these world champions, so it's great. It's going to be great the next couple months.
I frequent a lot of gyms, right? Is it me or is this place just, it seems like one of the busiest gyms in Vegas.
It's a plus and a minus being busy. You know what I mean? So, we are busy at times, especially during like fight weeks and stuff like that, or if we have big camps and stuff coming up. But I kind of have the luxury of not like running classes. So, holding camps and stuff like that, making time for the bigger fighters. We kind of have the luxury of doing that, you know, just because we have so many high profile guys in here.
So many.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, I want to once again thank you so very much for spending your evening with us today.
Yes.
You didn't
Yeah,
have to
no
do
problem.
that.
It was
I know
great.
you're a busy guy. I mean, just 15 minutes that we were sitting here before, you got like 5 phone calls about who knows how many fighters. You're clearly a very, very busy guy. So I appreciate the time that you spent with us today.
Yeah,
It's not
yeah,
taken
no
for
problem.
granted.
Yeah. So where can people follow you?
I pretty much just got Instagram, Pound for Pound Boxing.
Pound for Pound Boxing.
Yeah. So I spell it with BOXN. So
Okay.
but I'm not a real big social media guy. But definitely, if you want to see what's going on in the gym, I'm a big reposter. You know.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for coming with us.
Yeah, thanks
talking
for having
with
me.
us
Rich
today. Of
Barrientes.
course.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Whoa, whoa. Ooh, yeah, yeah.